Hey, I realized it's been a while since I actually gave you a rundown of what I think of the My Hero Academia manga. Because I make a lot of videos on like specific topics, but I very rarely actually go into like a more general opinion of where the story's going and what I think of it. In fact, I think I might have never done that in this format, so I thought I would just quickly chat to you about the current state of the My Hero Academia storyline. Obviously, this has spoilers. If you read current state of the manga and somehow think that there's no spoilers, I don't know how to help you. That seems like a you problem. Now, first up, I think I need to talk about the fact that My Hero Academia, the manga, is allegedly almost over. If you've been keeping up with sort of the news and the tone of the marketing around My Hero, you'll have noticed that this current part of the story is referred to as the final act, or the final part, and there are a lot of news outlets and a lot of other YouTubers as well who consider this an indication that the story is ending. And it seems like we're going towards an ending as a lot of pieces are sort of coming together. And right off the bat, I hate that. I really, really hate that. I think My Hero has not yet lived up to its own potential. I think there's so much more you could get out of this story if you just gave it a little bit more time. Primarily, I think I want more arcs focusing on other places other than Japan. I want arcs focusing on characters that have not gotten the spotlight yet. And I kind of just want more of this world. I guess in a way I'm not ready yet to say goodbye to this universe, because I really like quirks as both as a power system and a concept within world building. So to me, it just seems like it's a very premature way to end the story. And I also think just the storyline, the grudge between Deku and Shigaraki, the conflict between All for One and One for All, it's not saturated to a point yet where I need a conclusion. I would like more elaboration on it. I would like to see Deku especially grow more into himself, as he, by all intents and purposes, is still very samey compared to how he was 100 chapters ago. Like, he really hasn't changed all that much. His little depressive arc that he had during the villain hunt was appreciated, but I really kind of need this to carry over into some more permanent character changes. He just doesn't feel ready for a final fight yet. He doesn't feel like the kind of character that could finish a story conclusively, to me at least. I think Shigaraki's there. I think, honestly, Shigaraki does not need much more. He's already way, way too powerful and big. Although I think I would also appreciate sort of a second My Villain Academia-esque arc where you just kind of hang out with the guys, you know. I'd really want to see Shigaraki find out about Twice. I can't believe that still has not happened. Like, what the hell, Horikoshi? So yeah, I'm not super happy about the idea that the story is ending soon. So just keep that in mind as I keep talking about this, because it does color my opinion on everything else. But yeah, so that's, I guess, the first thing off the list. Now, before we get into the villain hunt arc and all that, I want to quickly chat to you about the end of the war arc, because I feel like that's another part that I have a lot of feelings on that I've not really expressed in video format yet. So, the Dobby reveal, super fucking cool, love that, one of my favorite parts of My Hero so far. I think it's really cool that we got rewarded for our loyalty and our attention to detail when it came to that character. Very, very cool. Everything after that is kind of a mess, though. Like, it's around this time that Horikoshi's editor changed, and I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but you can really tell. Because immediately after Dobby's whole shtick, we get Genist's return, which, I mean, I love Genist, hashtag best character in My Hero, but his return is really weird. Like, it kind of makes Dobby look like a fucking idiot in hindsight that he didn't account for it. I really thought that he had sort of a plan B for this, that there was some other thing he could say or do to mitigate the damage to sort of his image that was done after Genist comes back. But no, he just sort of like deals with it. He just has to cope, which kind of sucks, but you know, whatever. And then, of course, the big one, which is Mirio getting his quirk back, which is excuse my French, fucking trash. I hate everything about this. Mirio's whole subplot of whether or not he's gonna get his quirk back was one of the most anticipated things Hori had brewing in the background. And it just kind of leads nowhere. Because one thing that was always cool to me about this subplot was that it kind of hinted at the fact that we were gonna get sort of a deeper look into Eri and Mirio and sort of their bond, as well as sort of what Eri thinks of quirks as a whole. Eri, for how important she's been to the story, really is a non-character by all intents and purposes, besides being a child that is scared sometimes. And it's a shame, because I love Eri. She's so cute and so nice to have on screen. So I really hoped that we would get more on her, sort of what her quirks means to her. And instead, we kind of just got nothing. We got 2 pages of her torturing lizards, and then she can use it on Mirio, no issues. It all happens off-screen too. It's just very badly established stuff. And it's clear that the point of this scene is for us to cheer that Mirio is back. But then Mirio does nothing with it. He's just there, punches one Nomu, and disappears again after the war arc. Like, seriously? You had this side plot brewing for what, 3 years, and you just don't do anything with it. I really don't like it. It took 2 characters that I was very excited for, Mirio and Eri, and kind of finished their character arcs in like 2 pages. It's just not very good in my opinion. And the thing is, right, you can always go back and show us stuff through flashbacks, but it kind of doesn't matter anymore. Like, you've already shown us the end point. It doesn't really matter if you give me additional details after the fact, because now it's like reading a wiki. There's no emotional tension there anymore. I know that Mirio gets his quirk back, and I know sort of how he feels and how Eri feels at the end of it. So all you can really give me now is extra fat that will be appreciated, but it won't change my opinion very thoroughly, at least not in my case. Then there's the whole thing with Mr. Compress and his backstory regarding the King of Thieves, and it's also one of those things that just kind of comes completely out of nowhere. There is very little weight or really interest to this, because the King of Thieves was one of those things that I had anticipated as well. I kind of wanted that to be a cool reveal, and I don't have a problem with Compress being his descendant. I have a problem with it being revealed this haphazardly and for it to only matter for 2 chapters. Because this isn't something like the Dobby reveal, where it happens and then it doesn't have to continue to happen because it just is a huge game changer for the world of My Hero Academia. Oji Harima's great-great-grandson or whatever being in the war means kind of nothing. It only really gives us a look into Compress as to why he follows Shigaraki and why he feels compelled to do villainy, but even that is still fairly vague. And again, you've kind of given me the end point of this subplot already without giving me all the fat that would make a subplot enjoyable in the first place. So yeah, we can get flashbacks and we can get Compress talking about his past, but the slow build-up towards an actual triumphant moment and reveal is kind of gone, and it just kind of goes to show how little, I guess, Hori cared for this subplot. But again, it just feels very weird because in the end, this reveal accomplishes almost nothing. And yeah, that's a huge shame. And I know that I've been very negative so far, and I'm sorry. I'm gonna probably continue being negative later on in this video, but let's go over some positives right now. The Villain Hunt arc, fucking awesome. Love it from top to bottom. Everything we've gotten about the Dobby situation and the Todoroki family, fantastic. Loved every little bit of it. I especially am such a fan of all the haunting imagery we've gotten of Endeavor, and as well as a fan of all the cool new designs and scenes we've gotten with Deku. I feel like he as a character was really missing these sort of rule of cool moments, you know? Like, I've always liked Deku, I always thought he's very inspiring, but as a character and as a visual presence on screen, he's always lacked that sort of gravitas that other shonen main characters have, and so I'm glad that we finally got an arc that was basically completely dedicated to doing that, to make him look as raw as possible, which is cool, for sure. I've already talked about his 6 quirks in another video, so I'm not going to necessarily repeat myself, aside from saying that I still think their progression was unsatisfying and kind of stupid. But now that he has most of them, I'm okay with it. I don't sweat it anymore. It's kind of whatever. I also enjoyed Deku's return to UA. I thought it was a very heartfelt scene. I know some people are always very allergic to sincere, genuine, good vibes in My Hero, especially after the villain hunt arc. I think some people kind of trick themselves into thinking that raw Deku is now the norm, but no, My Hero is still fundamentally a very optimistic series. And so I am okay with how this went down. I'm even okay with the whole we are the greatest heroes, we together. I'm fine with that. I think it goes well together with the message of My Hero. A lot of the story so far has been dedicated to deconstructing this idea that one man or one entity can be the guy to save everyone. See All Might. So I kind of just vibe with this as well. Yeah, you have to work together. You have to be a collective force in order to continuously do good, because a single person can just not uphold that. It's not realistic. And people have called that, the power of friendship. And, well, it's a shonen manga. It's gonna eventually evolve its narrative into the power of friendship. It's inevitable. It's one of the easiest hashtag inspirational topics you can go into at the sort of age range that Shonen Jump is at, but it doesn't mean that it necessarily has to be bad. In fact, if the rest of My Hero now is dedicated to showing how a group of 20 people can together lift up society, I think that's perfectly within what My Hero has established as its core message. The idea that society as a whole has to change, and that change cannot be brought about by a single person. It needs to be done in groups, basically. The return chapters do have a couple of weird things, however, like Uraraka having this really emotional moment where she essentially saves Deku from the mob, and then immediately falling asleep so that they can't have a character moment together. Like, I kind of get it, but also it feels really dumb. Like, it feels like Hori's trying to dance around having to have that conversation, which is fine, or would be fine, if we weren't in what he keeps calling the final act. Like, what? Is the final chapter gonna be them being like, hey, we should talk, and then they go into a room and the series ends? Like, I feel like that would be very unsatisfying and inconclusive in a way. Like, I don't have a problem with ambiguity, but I think that if you're gonna include a romantic subplot in your story, for the love of God, actually include it. Don't just allude to it and have the fandom do the bulk of the work in their heads and their fanfictions. Because as of right now, all the romance in My Hero exists in tiny text boxes and fanfictions. And it's kind of very annoying, because you can clearly tell that there is an intent here to at least have the air of romance among these students, because, they're teenagers, and in the bloom of their hormonal development, of course, they're gonna have an interest in each other. I think Uraraka and Deku are the best example of that, and I kind of can't believe that there are people who say shit like, oh, it's not intended, they're not supposed to be interested in each other, when Uraraka literally says it. But hey, I'm not here to judge your headcanons. I just think some of you are really funny with how you move with that. Then there's All Might and Deku's reunion after their very, very dramatic separation, which I've seen some people really be mad about, and I get it. I personally just don't care. Like, it's kind of whatever to me. I kind of have accepted that All Might and his storyline will never go where I want it to go. Because if it were up to me, All Might would have died already. But the story seems to kind of be rewriting itself into not wanting to have him die, which personally I think makes for a weaker narrative, because I think that as much as you can stretch this idea of dying not physically, but dying mentally and emotionally, dying in the sense of seeing all that you've built crumble, as much as you can stretch that to its logical extremes, I think at some point, My Hero just has to pull the trigger and decide, okay, some things need to have consequences. Because so far, consequences of My Hero are few and far between, and many of them have now kind of become an afterthought more than anything else. Deku's arms, for example, after the war, should realistically have fallen off, and they haven't, despite it being established that he should be careful with them. But then he goes and fights so hard that his arms are in pieces, and the arc is just like, oh yeah, whatever, let's move on. And yeah, I'm not super happy with the fact that All Might's still kicking, but you know, what can you do? And once I accepted that, the whole thing where their reunion is mostly a joke kind of just worked as well. Like, I don't mind either way anymore. To end on a higher note though, Stars and Stripes versus Shigaraki is maybe one of my favorite fights in My Hero now, which I think is a hot take. I've seen people really upset with Stars and Stripes and that she's too powerful and really shouldn't have been in the story. And I agree. I think her inclusion is a terrible idea, but at the same time, I'm having so much fun with this fight, I really cannot be mad at it. Like, let's say this really is the end. We're really moving towards the finale of My Hero, like the editors are saying. Let's take them by their word. Introducing a character like Stars and Stripes at hour 11 of your 12-hour story is very bad, because you kind of can't write her out of the story again in a way that feels satisfying, but at the same time, you have to write her out of the story, because she's A, too powerful, and B, way too important of a person within the fiction to just not matter for the rest of the story. The moment she was introduced, Hori basically created a paradox, a conundrum that he could not really escape. Either she stays in the story and defeats Shigaraki, which that's not gonna happen, let's be real. She stays in the story, survives Shigaraki, which, okay, fine, but then why did you have her fight Shigaraki in the first place? She stays in the story, survives Shigaraki, loses her quirk. Okay, so she was just a plot device to power Shigaraki up. She stays in the story, and she doesn't lose her quirk, and she doesn't beat Shigaraki either and fucks off. Okay, pointless character. Or she dies to Shigaraki and doesn't give him a power-up. Like, at that point, why did you even create her? There are so many possibilities, and all of them end in a bad inclusion. However, Hori has proven me wrong on this one, because the actual conclusion to her storyline is fairly cool. She does die, and she does lose her quirk, but her quirk is essentially turned into this weird parasite within Shigaraki that starts eating away at All for One, and that is a very, very cool solution to this problem. I still think My Hero would probably have been better off without introducing her, but, you know, once you've written something, you can't really keep worrying about unwriting it, right? Like, once she was in the story, Hori had to deal with her one way or another. And given that, I think the way he has dealt with her now is about as good as it could have been from the moment he introduced New Order as a power. Speaking of, by the way, New Order is one of my favorite quirks so far. I love it. It feels like a stand ability more than it does a quirk. Now, as I'm recording this, we don't know how this is going to continue. I'm recording this as the chapter where Shigaraki steals her quirk has just released. So we'll just have to see where this goes. But to, I guess, conclude, I want to say that I am overall okay with the current state of My Hero Academia. I wish we had more time with this story. I really hope the whole shit about the final act is a fake out, but I kind of don't believe it is. I feel like what's more likely is that we're genuinely at the end, which just feels weird. It feels like My Hero had such a strong streak going up until the war arc, and then afterwards you can just feel, both from the marketing and from the way Hori communicates about the story sort of in his tweets and in his author comments, there's this feeling of exhaustion in it. Like, almost like the story needs to end now because everyone involved in it just kind of wants it to be over, which I can't really understand or honestly even back up. Like, there's no source of anyone saying, hey, we're tired of doing this shit. But it's just so bizarre that a story that was going so strong and doing so well for so long suddenly has these back-to-back reaffirmations about how it's definitely ending soon, despite the story honestly not being in a position to end. Like, I'm guessing this whole New Order parasite situation is gonna be how Shigaraki gets beaten in the end, or at least how he gets weak enough for our characters to beat him again. Because currently, before he absorbed New Order, Shigaraki was basically unbeatable, And you kind of got to wonder, how is Deku supposed to live up to him within the short time span we have? And I guess the final thing I want to say is that you can absolutely observe a shift in writing style around the midway point of the war arc. Whether it has to do with the editor or something else in Hori's life, I don't know. But there's a distinct shift towards what I call hype writing, where you don't necessarily put as much time into build-up as much as you just, pull the trigger on as many cool events as possible. We have gotten the reveal that Miura got his quirk back. We have the King of Thieves. We have Stain back in the story. Oh my god, is that Overhaul? Oh no, Overhaul's gone again. Oh my god, Shigaraki, he's fighting in the air against the American superhero. Oh no, the American superhero is dead. Like, there's so much here now where it just feels like Hori is banging out one hype moment after another, and sometimes it works because it has the groundwork and the legs to stand on, and other times, like with the Miura reveal, it ends up feeling like a very premature thing that should really not have happened yet. So yeah, that's sort of my biggest issue with the manga right now. It feels like it's being written by a different person at times, and that's sad. This is not to say that I don't like My Hero anymore. I still like it very, very much. I still get hype for it pretty much every week. It's just that the issues have started to accumulate, and one really has to wonder what's happening behind the scenes. But that's a topic for a different video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you around. Bye. As always, it's a great pleasure to make these videos for you, and also as always, a great thank you to all of our patrons who should be on screen right now. A special thank you to Daniel Garcia, Fiction Ape, Cini, Victor Perez, Cesar Londono, Gio, Jameson Tate, Pero Scocco, Razor Roy, Project Iceman, Mr. Meander, and Paracha. See you all next time. Be safe, be healthy, wash your hands. Bye-bye.